Everyone fantasizes about the day they burn their mortgage statement. No more payment, no more bank, no more 30 years of someone else's math quietly eating your life. Just yours, free and clear. Sounds perfect, right? Here's what nobody tells you. Paying off your mortgage earlier is one of the most emotionally satisfying financial decisions you can make. And depending on your situation, it might also be one of the most expensive. So let's talk about what actually happens: the good, the math, and the part your bank is absolutely not putting in the brochure. First, let's talk about what a mortgage actually is, because most people think they're paying for a house. They're not. They're paying for a house plus a staggering amount of interest quietly stacked on top, while the bank smiles and calls it a loan product. A $300,000 mortgage at 7% over 30 years doesn't cost you $300,000. It costs you over $718,000. You borrowed $300,000 and handed back more than double. That extra $418,000 didn't go toward your home. It went straight into the bank's pocket. And here's the part that should genuinely make you angry. In the early years of your mortgage, almost none of your payment touches what you actually owe. It's almost entirely interest. On that same loan, your very first monthly payment of around $1,996 splits like this. Roughly $1,750 goes to interest. Around $246 actually reduces your balance. You paid $2,000. You moved the needle by $246. That's not a payment plan. That's a subscription to someone else's wealth building. Every single month for 30 years. So what happens when you start fighting back? Everything shifts. Every extra dollar you throw at the principal kills future interest before it's born. Pay an extra $200 a month on that $300,000 loan, and you don't just shave off a few months. You pay it off 4 to 5 years early, and you save somewhere around $80,000 in interest. $80,000. Not in some complex strategy, not timing the market, not some scheme. Just by sending a little extra money to a balance every month and refusing to let the bank have it. That's the version of this story that feels obvious. But here's where it gets complicated. Your interest rate changes everything. If you locked in at 3% a few years back, congratulations. You're holding some of the cheapest money you will ever borrow in your lifetime. The S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10% annually over the last century, through wars, recessions, crashes. 10%. So if your debt costs 3% and the market historically returns 10%, the math is pretty clear. Don't pay it off early. Invest the difference instead. On paper, that's the right call. In practice, it assumes you're a robot. Because most people aren't actually investing the difference. They're spending it, slowly, on things they can't name 6 months later. The math only works if the behavior works. And behavior is where most people quietly fall apart. Here's what nobody puts in the financial calculator: the psychological shift that happens when you pay it off. The average American spends 15 to 30% of their monthly income on a mortgage payment. Eliminate that, and your entire financial life changes overnight. Not just the numbers, the feeling, the career risks you're willing to take. The side business you were too scared to start suddenly seems possible. The job you've been tolerating for years becomes optional. People who own their home outright report dramatically lower financial stress, even compared to people with higher net worths who still carry a mortgage. You can't put that in a spreadsheet, but it's real. And for a lot of people, especially younger people watching their stress levels quietly wreck their health and their decisions, that peace is worth more than the theoretical gains they left on the table. Now, here's the side of this nobody warns you about: liquidity. Your home equity is not a checking account. Say you've been aggressively paying down your mortgage for 10 years. You've built $200,000 in equity. Then you lose your job. That $200,000 sitting in your walls does nothing for you unless you sell, refinance, or take out a loan against it, which costs time, fees, and approval you might not get right when you need it most. Equity is real wealth, but it's frozen wealth. And frozen wealth in a crisis is a lot less useful than it looks on paper. This is why every serious financial advisor will tell you the same thing. Fully fund your emergency fund before you make a single extra mortgage payment. Not because the mortgage doesn't matter, because liquid cash in a fire beats equity you can't reach every single time. So who should actually pay it off early? If your rate is above 6 or 7%, paying it down aggressively is almost always the right move. A guaranteed return at that rate is genuinely hard to beat. If you're within 10 years of retirement, wiping out your biggest fixed expense before you move to a fixed income isn't just smart, it's protection. If you've already maxed your retirement accounts, built your emergency fund, and carry zero high-interest debt, extra mortgage payments become a very strong play. And if the weight of owing money affects how you move through the world, the decisions you make, the risks you take, the way you sleep, the emotional return of paying it off is real money, even when a spreadsheet can't see it. Who should probably not rush it? If you have a low rate and the actual discipline to invest the difference every single month without touching it, the math favors you staying in the mortgage. If you're carrying credit card debt at 20+%, that gets destroyed first. No debate, no exceptions. You don't invest while your credit card is charging you 22%. If making extra payments means stopping retirement contributions or wiping out your emergency fund, pump the brakes. You're solving the wrong problem first. The mortgage is not the most expensive debt most people carry. It's just the biggest and most visible one. Don't confuse size with urgency. Here's the move a lot of people completely miss. You don't have to pick a side. Take whatever extra you have and split it down the middle. Half goes to extra principal payments, half goes into an index fund. You're chipping away at the debt. You're building wealth outside the house simultaneously. You're keeping some liquidity. You're not betting everything on one outcome. It's not as satisfying as going all in on one thing, but satisfaction isn't actually the goal here. The goal is building wealth from multiple directions without blowing up your options if life decides to get weird. And life always decides to get weird eventually. Now let's talk about the moment it actually happens. You make the last payment. The bank sends paperwork, a deed of reconveyance, a lien release, a document that essentially says this property is yours now, entirely and completely. No institution has a legal claim on your home anymore. That's not just a financial milestone. That's a different category of freedom. Studies show homeowners who own outright are significantly more likely to stay in their homes long term, maintain them better, and report higher overall life satisfaction. The house didn't change. What changed is that nobody can take it. And in a world where it feels like something is always about to take something, that matters more than people admit. So here's what actually happens when you pay off your mortgage early. You save tens or hundreds of thousands in interest depending on your loan. You permanently eliminate your largest monthly expense. You unlock a level of financial flexibility that changes which risks you're willing to take. And you own something completely in a world where almost nobody owns anything completely. The debate between paying it off and investing the difference will never truly end. Both sides have real math behind them. But the best financial decision isn't the one that wins on a spreadsheet. It's the one you'll actually follow through on, the one that matches how you're wired, the one that makes you move forward instead of freeze. Figure out which one that is for you. Then, do it on purpose, not because a YouTube video told you to, because you ran the numbers, understood the trade-offs, and decided. That's not just financially smart, that's the whole game.